Hey there. Thank you so much for listening to Something Super Spiritual. My name is Jeffrey Peck, and I am a psychic medium. If you are seeking conversation with loved ones on the other side, or discussion about spirituality, life after life, and anything in between, join me as we discuss all things spirit. We are collectively experiencing a spiritual awakening right now and recognizing that we are much, much more than we once believed. We don't die, and life doesn't end. We are eternal spiritual beings living in this crazy 3D virtual world of existence. Let's talk about it. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Something Super Spiritual, the podcast. I'm really happy to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I like the name too.
Oh, thank you. It kind of covers a broad spectrum of spirituality, you know.
Yeah, it's great.
So I've been following you for a while on Instagram, and I love what you do. Like the events that you post, um, your little meditations on the reels. I mean, there's a real sense of peace and calm and healing that is just being blasted out to anybody who's watching this, right? So thank you for doing that, A. And B, why don't you kind of start from the beginning with us? What is your origin story? Where did this spirituality bubble up from? From a child or later on, or?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for that awesome reflection. It's always nice to hear, or it's always interesting too to hear how the work is perceived, and what
Yeah,
goes on. And
yeah,
I just really appreciate that reflection a lot. That means it's paying off. That
yeah,
means
yeah.
whatever I'm doing is working.
It is. Yes.
And, especially because it's rooted in this, in this spiritual practice.
Yes.
So I really appreciate that a lot. And yeah, we'll get into my, spiritual Spider-Man origin story.
Yes.
Uh, it really did it did come about pretty young. I was only 12 when my dad suggested that we go get a psychic reading together. I was in between flag football games in this tournament that I was playing in, and we were just kind of killing time. And there was a psychic guy down the street, and my dad, being curious, was like, "Hey, we should go check this out." And I always say that I feel like that's really where the intrigue began and started. Um, the woman that read for me told me that when I looked at myself in the mirror, I saw myself as a ram, like the Rams. I don't remember if they were in LA still at the time or if they were already in St. Louis, but so I saw a pro football player, but I was going to grow up to be a healer. And I thought that was I didn't know what a healer was at the
Oh,
time
she
at
told you
12.
that. She told you you're going to
Yeah.
be a healer.
Yeah. And it really was. I kind of joked that it took me until just maybe like a couple years ago to figure that out, what she meant by that. Uh, Even though the journey began a long time ago. Yeah, so I was really lucky. My parents were very open minded. They were into I would call it like personal development. They were interested in psychic stuff. They were really into John Edward and his work,
Yep.
the medium John Edward.
Yep.
So I grew up, I watched him on TV. And it was, in fact, it was one of his meditation tapes that was the first experience I had with guides, where I meditated, met my guides, did that whole thing. And that was really my first experience. And I was in high school at the time. I was a high school football player, and I found that practice of meditating and talking to guidance um, helped me when I was stressed or when I was confused. And even though I didn't rely on it as much as I probably could have, it
Yeah.
was still an interesting introduction. And I always say that was really the beginning. And then as I went off to college and stuff, I really dove deep into philosophy and began really my own pursuits. And it really just evolved from there. But I kind of been channeling my own stuff since high school, since late my junior senior year,
Wow.
doing channeling for myself. So that's the beginning, and then that kind of what brought us to where we are now. About uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what are the synchronicities that led you from then to probably, muggle jobs to, where you are now doing this
Hmm.
all over the country?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's been an evolution. It's been a journey. I think the one thing for me that I actually really appreciate about the path as it has unfolded for me is that this spiritual pursuit was my private secret practice. There
Hmm.
wasn't a lot of people that knew about it, that understood it. Very few close friends that knew, especially like in high school or college, right?
Sure.
Um, so yeah, it's interesting because it really was my anchor through, leaving college football to become a personal trainer. And I worked in fitness for over 10 years. I worked as a personal trainer. I was a fitness manager. I did my own thing, but I also worked in corporate fitness. So I ran, fitness departments for a couple of different corporations. Kind of loved the service aspect of it. I loved the fitness part of it, but also at a certain point, I kind of got restless and bored and
Yeah.
thought there was something more. And so I kind of started to shift gears, got into more creativity, expressing and exploring that. So I really got into filmmaking. I got behind the camera. I started producing digital content for nonprofits and political campaigns mostly. So still kind of a service oriented bent to the creative work I was doing.
Hmm.
And all in the background while we're doing this, whether it's fitness or, working with a political campaign or, doing the nonprofit stuff that I was doing. In the background was my spiritual practice, constantly kind of rearing its head, guiding me, popping in and out when I would listen.
Yes.
And in 2017 was kind of the big, I always say this is a big moment because I had a shamanic drum journey experience where I met a whole new set of guides and they literally, uh, I can't put it any other way. I feel like I touched that unconditional loving awareness
Yes.
that is God and the true essence of who we are.
Yes.
And these guys just said, "Hey, here's the tools we've given you. Here's how you can use them, and start to basically do what you do for yourself. Start to share that with other people. Show them how they can do this for themselves." And that's when I first realized, oh, I can actually channel or get information for other people as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And that began this journey of getting into the readings and sharing the meditation practices, writing a couple books, and it's just really been a me trying to help others recognize that they have this power and potential in themselves, and that there's a practical use to it. That it's not just woo woo.
Totally.
That the guidance actually can impact our day to day living, and that's kind of the essence of what I'm hoping to share and what I try to welcome people into is like this. You can take 5 minutes in a day
Hmm.
and tap into that inspiration and try to get some clarity for yourself, and then go act on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So, did you ever think of yourself then as psychic as you were channeling for yourself and like did that ever come up? Did friends ever ask you for readings or anything like that as you were growing up?
Well, the interesting thing is, my dad and my mom used to kind of play psychic games with my sister and I when we were younger.
Oh
So I'm in
God,
high school, and
that's
yeah,
so cool. That is
it was
amazing.
yeah, it was really cool. And my sister was very, I would say I would consider my sister psychic back then. Like when I looked at her and what she was doing, I was like, she's totally psychic.
Mhm.
For me, I was like, I don't know. Maybe I just got kind of lucky. Maybe I'm just kind of, I have a good ability to deduce what's going on. I made excuses or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I did have lots of dreams. But even then, I would have dreams about stuff that was going on collectively, and I still would never consider them psychic. It honestly wasn't even until a few years ago. I'd already been doing this work. I'd been doing tarot readings. I'd been channeling for people, and I still was like had a hard time saying, "Oh, I'm psychic,"
Yes,
or calling it that.
yes.
And so to answer your question, no, not even until recently would I say, "Oh, I'm psychic." I just kind of feel like, "Oh, I'm intuitive. I can sense things. I understand people. I can feel what they're going through. I can feel their emotions, or
Hmm.
I'm really good at breaking down what they're trying to say when they're communicating."
Right.
Um, but the deeper this work goes, the more I realize, oh, you're kind of just channeling their
Yeah.
energy,
Yep. Completely.
or something like that. Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
Absolutely. It totally does. Because when I got started with the mediumship, when that started to open up for me in 2007 ish,
Mm-hmm.
I would have these spontaneous experiences as I'm giving people Reiki treatments,
Mm-hmm.
and I would sense their loved ones around, and then ended up feeling like I finally started to have to say something. And I would, and after all of these experiences, I still had a hard time believing I was a medium. And I would, I mean, even up until like even like 6 years ago. I was like, maybe I'm just a really good guesser. you know.
Yeah,
But yeah,
totally.
so I absolutely get it. So
Yeah, I was gonna say it's just a really, it's an interesting journey. And I think maybe some of it is like some of the baggage culturally
mhm.
that comes with the concept of psychic
Yeah.
or
Oh
even
yeah.
medium. I don't do mediumship. I know you do.
Mhm.
And I think that probably has its own sort of cultural and intellectual baggage, religious,
Mhm.
whatever it is. And I think that might be part of it too. Like there's something ingrained in us. It's like, I don't think I'm supposed to say that that's what I'm
I
doing,
agree.
you know?
I think
Yeah.
psychic can be a loaded word. I
Hmm.
think that it comes with its own preconceived set of expectations, like a lot of people think coming to a psychic, they want to know their future. Tell me, what am I going to meet my soulmate? When am I going to meet my soulmate? Am I going to get this job? Am I going to move? When am I going to move? It's like, and that's not the point. It's not the point. So what do you think?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you, I'd be curious to hear your point of view too, what you feel is the point of this work. And I don't know if you want to share first, then I'll follow up.
Okay.
But
So I believe that we all come with our challenges, our struggles, whether it be in all of those main life departments, financially, relationship, love, work, family, the all of the big things that we're fated to and the traumas that we work through and how it's affecting us today. And when somebody comes to a psychic, they're able to tap into that deep-seated trauma, so to speak, and and offer them tools to be able to move through it, feel through it, and in doing so, by tapping into that, it can the psychic can feel where that will lead them. Not so much to your dream house or next love of your life, but maybe if you're really struggling in the relationship arena because of some childhood trauma that you picked up from your parents, and you are struggling with codependence or abuse or whatever.
right.
I think that the psychic readings are really about tapping into who you are and where you are and why you're there, and then helping you move through with the how and the why and the how you can grow and bloom from there.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of parallel. I think we see it very similarly. Um, I feel like I share your sort of like stereotypical conception of going to see a psychic is like, tell me my future.
Mhm.
And I really try to drive home and the work that I do that if you're getting a reading with me, that it's really about, we're doing this to understand what's the spiritual growth that's right in front of us right now.
Yes.
And like that was just how I started to digest the process. I didn't channel with any intention early on. And sometimes the stuff just wanted to come through, right? It was just
Yeah.
information that wanted to come in and perspective that wanted to be dropped on right in front of me. But as that became an intentional process, as I got older and more like refined with the process, then it really was, what do I need to know today for my highest good?
Mhm.
That's just a really super simple question, but uh, that that to me really is the purpose or the function of this ability, is to help us grow, like
Mhm.
you said, to figure out what's coming up, what's there, and then how do we move through it, why do we move through it, and like what are the lessons and the growth that comes of it. And I think in that way it's so fulfilling and so rewarding. It's not quite as
Oh.
destination based as people
Mm.
would want it to be,
Yes.
like you said, the lover or the new house or the dream job.
Mhm.
It's process based and process oriented, but to me that's where all the fun is, because you
Yeah.
get somewhere and the reality is there's something else on the other side of it,
Well, that's just it. After we get through and move through all of this work, we're completely
Hmm.
different people, and we might not even want what we thought we once needed,
Right.
because we're different.
Yeah. And that's a big thing, and I think that might be one of the things that can sometimes be very confronting for people when you do approach the work in that way. It's because I mean, I could tell you that it's gonna change you, right?
Mm.
If you ask that question, if that's your spiritual practice, what do I need to know today for my highest spiritual good? You're probably not gonna get all those external answers. It's not
Yeah.
going to really be about the job or the house or the partner or whatever. It's really going to be about your relationship to yourself, to
Hmm.
others, your
Hmm.
relationship to power, to love. It's like those are like really those are energetic themes that I feel like the soul comes to work with and work on. And
Completely.
um, yeah, the ripple effect of addressing those things, like you were pointing out, yeah, that could lead to your dream job or it could lead to the dream house.
Hmm.
But ultimately, in that process, you might decide that maybe that's not going to serve you anymore because you enjoy the freedom of not being worried about those things.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's really, it's fascinating and it's beautiful to watch all of this unfold with
Mhm,
our clients. You and I work differently, but the same.
mhm,
Um, with like some things that happen within my readings, I get the family members that have passed over, and quite often, there's generational behavioral patterns from the great greats to the great to the grands to the parents to their children to their children, and it could be anything from addiction, right? Addiction, um, um, uh, abuse, maybe travels through the generations,
yeah.
and and often the person sitting across from me, their loved ones on the other side are acknowledging how they were to them in life, and more often than not apologizing. I'm so sorry. um and then acknowledging their own personal work in this life, recognizing them that all of this family pattern, it stops with you, and this is amazing because of their own personal work and their own journey.
Right.
And it's so beautiful to watch and be part of.
Yeah.
It's an honor. Hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I use that same word. I always say that it's a privilege and an honor to help transmit the information that helps people in this work because yeah, at the end of the day, I think the way my readings end up working are you're bringing through, like you tend to, it sounds like, bring through people who have crossed over, who are help shedding some light on the journey. And it just, my stuff comes in like very specifically for the person, and so it's like where you might get some guidance from ancestors or people who have crossed saying, hey, this is what's in front of you. It's like the guidance that comes in for me is like, this is how you work through it. This is how
Hmm.
you show up. This is the lesson you're learning from this, all to the same ends that you're talking about of we're recalibrating, the patterning, we're recalibrating our energy system
Hmm.
and our thoughts and our actions to be more aligned with something that's loving and whole.
Yes, completely. Much more healthy.
Yeah,
Mm.
balance.
Mm.
Balance just comes up so much in the
All
work,
the
at
time.
least for
I
me.
mean,
Yeah.
for me at least, 59 times a minute.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I have those days, I gotta say.
Yeah.
So your books. Tell us about your books.
Yeah. So a couple books. I wrote a book called Awakening Soul Force, a practical guide to awakening the truth within. And this book really was like a massive download of my journey. It's a mix of the personal stories, my own personal journey with spirituality, and really the intention was to just give my experiences. It's really important to me that I speak from that perspective, that I'm just sharing my experience and I'm
Yeah.
just sharing in the hopes that something that I did here that worked for me might work for you, or it might inspire you, or a direction to take that can then propel you on your journey. So it's really a mix of like my personal stories mixed with how a lot of different like little spiritual practices that became crucial to my journey worked and helped, and what they did and how they got me to a certain place, and then what evolved out of that. So it's very much a very kind of a practical reflection. It's like my
Hmm.
life and this journey. and then offering up some, you know, some food for thought and reflections and exercises and practices that you could try and see what happens. Because, at the end of the day, we can talk till we're blue in the face about meditation or psychic ability or channeling or energy healing or all that stuff. But until you have like a direct experience with it, it doesn't, I don't want to make it reduced to this, but it's like, it doesn't really mean much to us. It's not real. It's not tangible. It's not lived. And I think that's a really important piece of what I was trying to convey with that book and trying to invite people into the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Don't believe stuff, like try it out. And if you have this transcendent experience, awesome. Where does that take you? You know what I mean?
Yes, I love that. I love that. It's like the Buddha quote, whatever Buddha said, take what resonates and leave the rest.
Yeah. Yeah. Because not everything is for everybody.
Nope.
And we all have different backgrounds and experiences and things that work for us. So
Yep.
yeah, for any one person to say, I got all the answers for everybody, it doesn't pan out that way. It's just not how it works. And even when I think I've come to understand that even more in my readings. It's like the way that I read, I tend to get a specific kind of information. It's very emotional. It's very energetic. Sometimes I get very clear psychic hits about physically what's happening, or like seeing something like something that might be kind of a timing landmark or something that lets somebody know where they're at on their journey.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I'm getting stuff I'm more kind of like swimming in the vibe of what's going on with the person. And other people are very different. I've had people read me that are just like nailing like exactly what's going on in a very real sense. Everybody has a different offering. Everybody has a different gift.
Yep. It's all, everybody works just a little bit differently. And I think that's really amazing, given the spiritual senses and how, they are what they are, but we all experience them just a little bit differently. And through those differences, we have these different offerings and different services in ways to help heal and connect and inspire and uplift, so many different ways. It's awesome.
Yeah. And it's fun for me too, because of at least the call that I've answered and what came through to me when I started this work. I was told that I was going to get a lot of people who are healing types, and they're practitioners or budding practitioners. So to your point, talk about like this beautiful mosaic of offerings, that exist. I actually get to experience in a lot of ways, oh, this is this person's unique expression of these gifts, and to your, what you're saying, it really is a beautiful thing. And that's why it's so much our own work, to get in there. And like I said, this first book is like, well, try this stuff out and figure out where it leads you. And hopefully it leads you to something. Actually, it should lead you to something that looks different than what I do. That's definitely the goal. It should look like what you express.
Exactly.
What your unique shade of all these colors are,
And what's the name of the book again?
Awakening Soul Force.
Awakening Soul Force. Okay.
Yeah.
And your next book?
Yeah, the next book is Be Still and Listen. And Be Still and Listen is a guide to unlocking our intuition. And this one's a lot more like a guidebook. It's kind of more straight to the point. But it was definitely, it came about through being so then engrossed in the work. Like once I started to take the first book out on the road and I was doing the expos and traveling and doing workshops, it was just like so clear. There was something clear about filling a need, like breaking this information down in a really digestible way. So it's pretty short. It's only like 130 pages, but it kind of gets right to it. It's like, we're our own unique channel for loving awareness. And the way that we are that is that we have these intuitive senses, and that connects us to this expanded dimension of consciousness and loving awareness. And we use these senses now to bring information through to help steer us again to our own truth, to our own expression, whatever that uniquely looks like. That's the function of these senses, So yeah, that one just it's a lot less personal story, a lot less personal journey, and kind of straight to the point. It's like a little handbook for the intuitive senses, how they work, and then using meditation and stillness to access those dimensions of awareness.
And where can the listeners find these books?
Yeah, you can find them both on Amazon.
Okay.
You can find them on Amazon. You can also order them out. If you go to my website, jeffbaumgartner.com, you'll find the links to the books there.
Okay.
Um, yeah. Then they're
Awesome.
available on Audible too, which is nice.
Did you
It seems
record
like a
it?
lot of people. I did. Yeah.
You did.
It was my least favorite part of the process.
I was just gonna ask
To
how
be
that was for
honest,
you.
it's so funny. I've done so many different things. You get used to the creative process. You get used to like some of the stumbling and the frustration that comes with refining something, right? But man, I got to tell you, like writing the book, editing the book, like no problem. Like it's fine. Let's just comb through it. Let's make it work. For whatever reason, there's something about reading your own words and hearing your own voice
Yeah.
like ad nauseum that I
Yeah.
was like, I'm so tired of myself.
Yeah.
I just, I don't want to hear me. I don't want like, it's so self-indulgent and I like myself, but maybe not that much to be totally
Right.
engrossed in that process. It was a challenge, but
Cool.
what is this journey without a little
Truth.
hiccup there, here
Yeah.
and there, right?
Yeah. So, as you're making your way,
Mhm.
what challenged you? What did you find was a struggle as you were getting to know your spiritual self, your loving awareness, your guides, your
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just trusting. Like, and I'm sure everybody that gets involved in this work, but maybe everybody out there has something around just learning to trust themselves,
Mhm, mhm.
But that for sure was a big thing, and trusting the process and trusting that it's real, or trusting the information that you get, and trusting that if you follow that, it's going to lead you to something that helps you grow and develop. The trusting is big. Listening. I mean, I wrote a book called Be Still and Listen. They say that you teach what you need to learn the most, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to like emphasize that this is, I feel like part of this journey and these books have come from the struggle was to, I think in a way to like maintain the path and to maintain the connection. I lost the connection at a certain point to a certain degree. Spirituality was a part of my life from very young, like I was talking about. And there was a phase of life where I'd gotten married and it was a rough relationship for me. It was pretty toxic. And um, uh, it got to the point where my sure fast connection was always my dream life.
Yes.
I always had dreams that would bring through reflections and insights. And like I got to a point where I wasn't dreaming as much, you know,
Oh, mhm.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And my focus and attention was just elsewhere. And those nights and those days would roar forward where like stuff wanted to get channeled out and stuff. But um, yeah, I'd fallen out of the practice and I kind of got pulled off. And yeah, and I guess in some ways, did think kind of acting in ways that weren't in alignment.
Yeah. I
And
get
so
that.
getting back on that horse, and I think really committing to that was a big turning point and a big moment for me.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I think staying on the path is probably one of the hardest things in this modern life and in this modern world too. It's pretty easy to get distracted and
Oh,
consumed.
completely.
Yeah, and sometimes not by and not sometimes it's not really our fault. Like there's just fundamental systemic things that makes things more challenging than they need to be.
Mhm, mhm.
you know, uh,
Yes.
I could go off on a whole tangent there, but it's like but there is a lot there. There's a lot to the kind of lifestyle that we've cultivated as a culture and expectations, but also, like I said, just like systemically, do we have the time
Yeah.
to pursue these things? Are we afforded that? Um, I think it's a right. Our spiritual realization, I think, is a right. It's like I don't know. God put us here.
Agreed. Hmm.
I feel like if nothing else, that's the first thing that should be on the table is everybody is entitled to their self-realization, but we put up a lot of blockades, I think, and distractions that can deter us from that.
Um, when you were younger, was your family affiliated with any certain religion, or was that a factor in your growing up?
It was a little bit. Both my parents went to Catholic school. They went to
Okay.
Catholic high schools. I was baptized. I did CCD and catechism. But it wasn't really hardcore, you
Hmm.
know. Um, there was always so much curiosity and openness.
Yeah, it
So
sounds
I
like
think
it. Like
I'm very lucky in that way.
totally.
But still, there's still those things that you start to first get into it. I do my first auto writing session, and I'm like, am I going to go to hell because
Oh,
of this? You know what I mean? Like, there's still that
yes.
little thought in your head.
Yep.
Is this okay? Am I allowed to do this,
I
or
know.
is
I
this the
know.
devil? I'm not sure.
It's
Do
that
you
program that's
relate?
just been imprinted in us, you know?
Hmm.
So, with regard to
Hmm.
your events just look awesome to me. I mean,
Oh, thanks.
they just look fabulous. Um, Explain what your events are like. Like,
Sure.
do you have certain, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a syllabus. Does the syllabus change with each event, or is it all pretty like dialed into getting within, finding that space, that spiritual sense, the healing, all that? You know what I mean? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. I mean, in a way, like the formula or the runner show, when it's boiled down, is to trying to create a space for people to have their own experience. So if I was going to distill it down to one thing, because again, I mentioned this earlier, it's like no one can ever take away those direct experiences. So if you get quiet, you do a shamanic drum journey, or you do a meditation experience, or you facilitate a healing session, and they feel the movement of energy
Yeah.
or the release of tension, you can't take that away from somebody. That can't be removed from us. So my intention is always to help create an experience for people when they come, so that they walk away. And it could be something as simple as like coming and saying, wow, I came in kind of stressed and a little bit restless, and now I feel clear and I feel relaxed.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a huge win,
Huge. Hmm.
and sometimes people come and have really, they have powerful experiences. They get a download, or some, they touch something within themselves that um it helps expand their awareness or helps give them some clarity. And those are obviously really great as
Those are
well.
awesome. Yeah, those mystical experiences that
Yeah.
just kind of stop you in your tracks, just kind of
Yeah.
like take your breath away and you're speechless, like, what just happened? Those are
Yeah.
amazing. I love those.
I'd be curious what, for you, what's maybe one of the most powerful ones you've had in that regard?
Um, oh my gosh, so spirituality for me was never really a thing early on. It happened in 2006 when I became attuned to Reiki.
Oh,
And
cool.
I did it for my mother because of her lifelong physical pain.
Hmm.
So what I didn't realize was the like the side effect for me was the ignition of the spiritual senses.
Oh, yeah.
And I just like, I mean, just boom, wide open. And I didn't know what was happening. I thought I mean, there were moments where I thought, am I just losing my mind? Because
Yeah.
I don't know where this is coming from. And I was seeing visions and beings and
Mm.
feeling on the outside, and
Right.
these words and uh, blocks of information would just like all of a sudden happen in my head.
Hmm.
And trying to understand and gauge what all that meant. Right around the same time, I had seen something about spirit guides somewhere, and I thought, huh, we have spirit guides. That's cool. I mean, I've heard about them, but I mean, I'm starting to
Right.
really like tap in and recognize the truth in this, right? So
Hmm.
I was out running one day, and I sat on top of this little big rock, great big rock. And I just decided to sit there and meditate with the intention of meeting my spirit guide or guides. I just didn't know.
Right.
And prior to this, I would talk to them. I would talk to him, them, they, whatever. I didn't know their pronouns at the time.
Yeah.
um, and I talked to them like here we are. We're on an adventure together. This is great. When am I going to meet you? So on top of this rock, this one day, I'm sitting there and eyes closed, and it was like, I mean, if you feel it, you just feel this expansion.
Hmm.
And in my spiritual sight, it was like I was looking at this great big hill in front of me. And around the side of the hill was this path. And here comes this man walking up from around the back of that hill towards me.
Mm.
And he's dressed in like safari wear, what your safari guide would wear in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And so he starts talking to me, and he starts telling me things about who I am and why I'm here, and the people that we can affect and help and heal and touch. So we get through all this conversation. And at the very end, I'm like, okay, this is really great. Oh, he said, I asked him, what's your name? And he said something like Maharaja, and I was like, can I just call you MJ? And
Yeah.
like, that's fine.
Right.
So at the very
Yeah, that
end,
happens.
it does. At the very end, I said, I have one more question. I said, why are you wearing those clothes?
Uh-huh.
He said, you're the one that said we were on an adventure. And I was like,
I like that.
what?
That's cool. Oh my gosh, I love
Yeah.
that.
Oh, so that was I came out of that, like, when you come out of those moments and you're just kind of a little dizzy and you're like, what just happened?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I get like the spirit chills,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as you were telling that resonated as the kind of the kind of thing that comes through,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I love that. I love your story, and I love that little bit at the end too about the clothing, because to me, the most powerful experiences, and this is always, I think, like a telltale sign when we've tapped into something truly like mystical and expansive, is when you have those little moments and experiences where something comes out of left field like that, where you know that your imagination wouldn't have gone there
Yeah.
because you're not that clever.
Totally.
Or at least I'm not. I'm not. So
No.
I don't want to speak for you.
No.
But I've always thought that's like, oh man, like that happened a lot when I do the drum journeys, But I love when something comes in like some just from that perspective, it makes you go, oh my God, that okay, this is something else, because I wasn't gonna go there. I feel like that's such a great telltale sign that you've tapped into some intelligence that's beyond our limited perspective.
Completely.
It's cool. That was really cool.
And like a sense of humor, like
totally
not taking things so seriously, which we certainly can,
Oh, of course.
So yeah, that was very cool.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that. That's a great experience. I love the way it came about, and the way you describe it too feels very resonant. Like, yeah, that's the way they happen.
And I imagine people experience things like that in your events.
Yeah, I feel like the feedback is always pretty positive. There's always somebody there that reaches out afterwards if they're not ready yet to talk about it the day of. But yeah, it is always really interesting. Every group is different, which is always a unique thing that I find. Because some of the events are different. Some are a little more like circles, like tight, intimate circles and a closed space. And then we get the opportunity to do stuff like my friend Amanda hosts these ones at her place in Topanga, and they're outside, and she has this beautiful outdoor pool and a rock garden area where we do things. And those events are very different. Those are more like day-long retreats and stuff, but talk about doing the deep dive. And I feel like those are, at this point, seem to be the most profound, because it's like you spend the whole day in that space.
Yes. And
it feels like it goes deeper and deeper and deeper as the day goes on. I think they can be really powerful. And yeah, they're always different. The groups always feel different, depending on who's there, and what comes up is different. It's a very fascinating thing to be a part of. And it's really an honor to facilitate. Again, you get to see all the faces, of this work. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, I love having those experiences. When I lived in Phoenix, and I lived there on and off for 27 years. So when everything started to bubble up for me in 2006, I mean, I was at Sedona once a month,
I bet
planting myself in one of those vortexes, and
Hmm.
really and I had a ton of more of mystical stories, like I just told you, just by sitting in Sedona, and
Yeah.
just a whole lot of that surreal energy downloads, I guess, and,
Hmm.
and also really learning about the energy, and what it feels like, and the differences, the little
Yeah.
nuances. And
Hmm.
so how often do you do your events? Are they monthly, or are they quarterly, or are you doing them all the time? I know you're taking a break right now.
Yeah, they were all the time for a lot of the year as like kind of as they came up.
Mhm.
Kind of redirect, trying to figure out the right balance of that now. It was a very action oriented year, I would say. Like there was a lot of activity, there was a lot of events. I can feel it winding down. You were just talking about paying attention to those subtle things and the nuance of like working with energy.
Yep.
And around July, I could tell things were shifting gears. And I feel like I'm entering that phase now of like things are kind of shifting a little bit, recalibrating. I definitely needed a little bit of a rest and a break because it can be tiring. And I'd be curious, actually, from your perspective too. Like I've noticed, I feel like the more the work is done, the more sensitive we become to the nuanced things.
Oh, for sure. Mhm.
So like that also it's been at a certain level for a while, and I'm like, okay, I need to take a break because I'm like really feeling it when I
Mhm.
do these readings. They become like immersive experiences at this point.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like early on they were more, you get these hits and things come in, um, kind of like to help direct attention. But I feel like more and more lately they've been more immersive, and so that also tends to be a lot more, uh, just more exhausting
Yeah,
in
yeah,
a way.
draining. Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
So
guys, I had a reading with Jeff. Jeff did a reading for me a couple weeks ago, I think,
yeah.
and I love your process.
Oh, thanks.
And you were just so like, you hit where you needed to hit. Let's say that. You know what I'm saying? Because I wasn't
Yeah.
quite sure. I didn't really have any places that I felt needed addressing, but
Right.
there's always room for clarity, a little bit of clarity wherever is needed, and the best and highest good. And you
Sure.
absolutely just hit it, and it was just really, really beautiful.
Oh,
So you
cool.
guys, I want you to, take a look at Jeff at his website, jeffbomberger.com, and take a look at his work because he's awesome.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
You're
It's nice to
welcome.
hear that reflection. Yeah.
Since yesterday, I'm synchronistically, I've had a couple things happen.
Hmm.
And yesterday I spoke with a guy. I did an interview for the show, and he's an angel guy. And I thought we were going to talk about the angels and what they can do for us, and angel therapy, and, all that stuff, right?
Right.
But it went a direction I was not expecting. And it was about
Mm.
him channeling the angels in a way where they're showing him and telling him where we're going, humanity, so to speak. Um,
Mhm.
Obviously, with where the state of the world is, right? Global warming, the COVID 2.5 years ago,
Mhm.
the economic stability now, the governmental, the
Mhm.
war in Ukraine. I mean, it's heated all over the place, right? The
Yeah.
New Agers have been talking about the age of Aquarius. You know,
Mm.
the New Agers have been talking about this new world of
Mhm.
breaking down all governments, financial systems, coming to a new way of life without war, and living peacefully, and however that looks, right? So,
Mhm.
so he was saying that this is happening. This is happening. The angels are telling him this is happening right now, and some big things are going to happen in September. Some big things are going to happen in November, and he wouldn't get candid about it, and I asked him, I said, are you talking about like massive weather events, or, like I'm in San Francisco, earthquakes, or,
Sure.
hurricanes, in
Mhm.
wherever. And, of course the fires are raging all over the place. So,
Right.
but he wouldn't go there because he doesn't want to give attention to that negativity. Anyway, so my whole point is like, what is your take on energetically where we are, humanity, what's happening synchronistically? What's your take on all this?
Oh, that's a good, big,
It
juicy
is big,
question.
I know.
Shoot, we should have done a whole podcast on that question. uh, where I feel like we are at, I do feel like we are definitely in a time of, we're always in a time of choosing.
Mhm.
Like we always have that opportunity, right, to choose a path. Um, as someone who, I'll use my own personal experience, and I feel like this was really relevant for like where we're at. I had to kind of extract myself from a very toxic dynamic, and more than once. So I'm not going to say that it was just one thing, but pretty much I've found along my path quite often I've shown up in areas where I'm like trying to fight the good fight, like we're trying to do it with integrity, and we're trying to do it honest, and we're trying
Mhm.
to do it without harming people or lying and cheating and stealing.
Yep.
And if that's your intention, that comes to a head with a culture that actually kind of in a way celebrates it. It rewards it for sure. But we always have a choice. And so I just think that part of what's going on right now is it's like sometimes when we're in situations we can get very complacent, right? We like, not only does biology like homeostasis, but we like it,
Yes.
I think, psychologically. We like to cruise and to kind of chill. And I think things are becoming so in our face that it's hard to deny it. So if we looked at just what goes on collectively more like a person, it's like that time in a relationship or a dynamic when you realize, this is really not good. And I think that I probably need to start figuring a way to either push back or get out of this,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
fix it. I think collectively what's happening is things are just ramping up so intensely. I think there's a lot of really good natured people who are just kind of cruising. I
Mhm.
think we're all there at some level. There's a level of apathy that we
Yep.
all have for whatever, pick your social collective issue.
Yes.
But I do think there's a lot of apathy and cruising about the state of things. And I think we're all, it's the heat is being turned up to help us realize, hey, you're gonna have to take some action on these things to flip the script.
Yeah.
We need people to be willing to grab the ball and run towards the end zone, but towards that end zone that brings us closer to harmony and sustainability and peace and cooperation. And that's kind of, to me, I think that's where we're at. I think it's in a lot of ways it's an activation.
Yeah.
It's a way to ask us to step up, because if we don't, well, we know what the result is. It'll be a rough go.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Activation. I like that. That resonates. Yeah. People got to participate. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I had somebody ask me once if we come into this world in this lifetime and we have a plan for, our soul created this plan, this soul contract for whatever it is we need, we want to learn. Our soul needs us to learn, grow, expand. The
Mm-hmm.
challenges that we face, whether it be physical challenges, illnesses, or whatever, right? Somebody asked me once, well, why even pray? If everything is kind of just as it is, and this is the way it's written out, and you know, why bother?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the whole point is to participate in your life and
Yeah, it's a good way to put
make
it.
the right choices. The choices for our souls, the
Mm-hmm.
choices for our souls as a collective together, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like so I say that because it goes it like a okay, so I'm getting ready to direct it to Lynn McTaggart, The Intention Experiment. Have you ever seen that
Mm-hmm.
book or heard of her?
No.
So she did this intention experiment where she had thousands of people all the way around the world focusing on this one intention. And
Mm-hmm.
it may have been peace, it may have been love, something like that. But thousands of people around the globe. And scientifically, they were able to pinpoint how this is completely like I sound like I'm talking out my butt right now, but because I haven't read the book for so long, but they
Oh
were
yeah.
able to pinpoint how crime went down in that hour in whatever
Oh, that's
city that she
interesting.
was talking about, and
Hmm.
how the collective, by focusing together in meditation.
Hmm.
William Rand does this with the Reiki intent or the Reiki experiments, where
Oh, cool.
people all around the world sit together and they blast Reiki for whatever intention it is for that day or that quarterly session. But
Yeah.
so my point is we can all make a difference if we
Yeah.
participate and work
Totally.
together.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the thing is, it's at least in what I try to share in the work is like I recognize part of what the spiritual side of it, the spiritual work is really about planting seeds
Mm-hmm.
that will take, that will grow and harvest. Who knows how long? Depends on who plants the seed and who cultivates it, right? If
Mm-hmm.
it's 5 months, 5 years, or 50 years, or 5 generations from now, I think it all pays off. I'm very much a student of nonviolence and like Gandhian nonviolence, and one of the principles in nonviolence, or not even a principle, but it's that nonviolence doesn't always work, but it always works. And in that, if
Yes.
we don't engage in dehumanizing another, and we hold that space, yeah, we might not win the battle in the moment, but the thing is, we're not degrading humanity, and that's always in the long run a win. And I feel like that's a little bit of what we can do to make a difference. Is yeah, we do our work, we go on our journey, we get in touch with our true authentic selves. And the thing is
Mm-hmm.
that I feel like, I did a lot of political stuff, and that's a very kind of outside in way of trying to wrangle stuff. But what I think is beautiful about this work is I'm so confident in loving awareness that if everybody just like slows down and goes there, I already know where we're going to end up.
Yeah.
So I actually I have faith that much in like loving awareness and loving consciousness, that if we just take that time, that eventually we will get to that place where we're like, oh yeah, of course we're all connected. Of
Mm-hmm.
course we have to take care of the land. Of course I will not use violence to solve my problems because I understand that you're the same as me.
Yes.
So like instead of telling people those concepts, I think what's cool about this path is like we can really go in their journey to get to that understanding. And when we do that, that's when the real shifts happen, because then the rest of it kind of follows. You know what I mean?
Totally. Mm-hmm.
The laws or the agreements that we make, the way that we organize and congregate and relate and collaborate, all that fundamentally shifts when we're all coming from a place of like, okay, well, I know my true worth and value as an expression of the divine, and I also know I have something to contribute here, and so do you. So let's figure out how we do that. You know,
Yeah.
um, and that shifts everything. So we all have a role to play in it for sure, and there's no role too small.
Agreed.
Uh, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've been talking for almost an hour now. Thank you so much for
Nice.
being here with me. Do you have any last words of wisdoms you'd like to impart on our listeners?
Ooh, good question. Another good question. Bringing home the heavy hitters at the end. There's this okay, yeah. There's this really great Alan Watts clip that I love, um, and he talks about how you can't, you basically can't convince somebody. Uh, you can't convince somebody to just throw away their beliefs, right? And in the example he uses, he talks about if someone believes that the world is flat, you can't tell them that it's not. They're going to tell you, well, look, I look out there, I look out in the world and I see that it's flat. And you can't tell me that otherwise. And his remedy to that is say, okay, great. Instead of arguing with them, say, okay, well, let's go find the edge. And I think that is such a cool, just tight little analogy for like what this journey is all about in terms of our spiritual understandings, our growth, and our truth. It's like let's get outside of beliefs. Let's just stop taking whatever as a belief and saying that we just believe things, and like get out there in life and have experiences and walk this path and allow your understandings and your wisdom to come from those direct experiences. And that way that they're rooted and grounded in something like here and now and present and in this body. We have this body for a reason.
Mhm.
A lot of, I mean, I'm guilty of it. We pine about being in this body and on this planet that's on fire and all that stuff. Yeah, totally. We all complain about that at some point, but at the end of the day, we're in this body and we've been given these physical senses and we've been given these intuitive senses to be investigators and to be creators. So beliefs, that's just fantasy, and that's fun. That's great for entertainment, and making art maybe, but when it talks about like embodied, like living and breathing, truth, yeah, go out there and let's get our hands dirty and let's get into life, and let's, if we believe in loving awareness and all the things that brings to life, like let's go give it life in the world.
Yeah.
Let's not just talk about it, let's go be it and share it. So I would invite people into the spiritual experience, much less than having spiritual beliefs. That's what I would leave us with. Yeah.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This has been awesome. I love it.
Thank you.
Great conversation, man.
Yeah, it has been fun, hasn't it?
Yeah. Always good. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Well, it's just, it's the way it's come to me is part of it. Like this work is turning on lights. That's an analogy that was given to me. And it's like, you never go wrong by turning a light on.
Totally.
Like, even if it's just one, it's just a room that was once dark is now light, and that's a win.
Yep.
So yeah, and like that's what you're doing. And I think it's so great to have people exposed to all the different things, because you just don't know what's going to click.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm not for everybody. Like not everybody's going to resonate with my approach and all that kind of stuff, and that's okay, because there's a million ways to get into this. And
totally.
I guess, like we talked about, that's good. Find your way into it. Shed some light on it in a way that I don't see it. And that's why we're all here doing it together.
Yes. Oh, Jeff, you're amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. This was really great.
Thank you. Yeah. Keep in touch. I'll be following you. And if you ever make your way up to the Bay Area, I'll absolutely be at one of your events.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I know. I did a thing in March that actually went pretty well, but yeah, we'll see. I think the way we're going to do it, there's still nothing set in stone at this point. I have a few events that I'll finish out that were booked out a long time ago through the rest of the year. But looking into the next year, it's like I'll probably spend a good 6 months doing more of an online push. And then probably like spring, early summer, we'll try and like get out again and do events. Yeah. The Bay Area is one of my areas I'd like to go back to. So yeah. But we're going to try to do them more contained.
How many people do you usually have?
It depends. It's this thing that my friend Amanda has put on a couple at her place there in Topanga, and there was like 100 at the first one. There was
the
80 at the one after that.
A lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. The last one we capped at 25, but then it still ended up being about 35 plus like people who were helping out and stuff. And that one was actually really good. It felt really good because it was like the whole group got to go through everything together. My girlfriend Onkar did the Kundalini portion. I did an intuitive portion, and then there was a sound bath. And everybody though did each offering, and it felt like that created this really nice kind of a cohesive experience for everybody. And I came away from that. It felt like a highlight to me of the year. I was like, ooh, I think we hit, like, this was a sweet spot. This really felt good, and the flow was right. And I think people walked away with just the right kind of experience. Like, I think the way that it took them in and out of it, it worked. So I look forward to trying to do more of those and stuff. But, it's always like, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is a lot of work
to organize them.
And as a participant,
yeah,
it is so awesome to be with a big group of people like that, because when you're all in it with the same intention, it just like strengthens the power, right? And when you're all meditating with the same, it's magical. It's mystical. It
is.
Like, it gives me chilly bumps talking about it.
I know. Awesome. I got it too. I got it too. It's all the M's: magical, mystical. Yeah. Yeah. Magnificent. Yeah. It's just, it is really cool. And there's something about that. And yeah, you feel it. I feel it. If you're sensitive to energy, and a lot of the people that come to those events are, but man, yeah, you can feel it when everybody's kind of dialed in.
Yeah. Oh,
and
I mean, it just,
and I think that's why this last one really worked, because I feel like the Kundalini really opened people up.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got into mine was like an intuitive offering, like a workshop. And I did a couple readings, but then had them do their own meditation and like seeking within themselves. And I think that was really powerful. And then to like the sound bath to process, and like let that simmer. So that's why I said, I feel like the offerings in that last one that we did in the beginning of August was like it hit just the right chords, the right notes throughout the day. And like I said, hopefully we can find ways to replicate that kind of experience. It's just that particular one, it's just a lot to organize.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, sound baths are one of my favorite things too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do that again. I'll be there.
Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. You'll be the first on the list.
All right, my friend. Have a great holiday weekend. Okay.
Thank you. You too.
I'm gonna try to get this out next Thursday. So I think this is gonna be my next one. This was really good. I really appreciate this one. This is awesome.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate this a lot. Yeah, the opportunity to talk about this stuff is always a privilege.
Totally.
Cool.
All right. Well, you have a good weekend. I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
You too, Jeffrey. Adios, my friend.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you again for listening to the Something Super Spiritual podcast. If you know someone who would enjoy this episode, please do share it with a friend. For show notes, links, and to purchase a mediumship reading, my website is somethingsuperspiritual.com. You can also easily subscribe and follow the show on your favorite app, sign up for my newsletter for bonus content, and to keep the conversation going, you can easily join the Facebook community. It's all right there at the website, somethingsuperspiritual.com. Signing off for now, namaste.